All right, let's just jump right in. There's some lines in ancient texts that they make you stop and reread them. They are intense, they're a little confusing, and they absolutely demand to be understood. Well, today, we are unpacking one of the most powerful and honestly one of the most debated statements in the entire Bible.
And there it is. Suffers violence, the violent take it by force. I mean, come on, that is not gentle, poetic language. It sounds like a declaration of war. It's raw, it's aggressive, and it came straight from the mouth of Jesus.
And that, of course, is the million-dollar question. What on earth did he mean by this? Was this a call to arms, a metaphor for some spiritual battle, or was it something else entirely? Well, to figure it out, we've got to go back to the exact moment these words were first spoken.
Look, to understand the words, we first have to understand the world they landed in. Context, as they say, is everything, and the context here was absolutely explosive.
So what's the scene? First, you have these massive crowds just flocking to John the Baptist. There's this huge spiritual awakening happening. But right as Jesus is saying these words, John, the guy who started it all, has been thrown in prison by King Herod for daring to speak truth to power. So this isn't some peaceful sermon in a quiet field. It's a statement made right in the middle of a crisis.
And that's the crucial point right there. The arrival of the kingdom of heaven wasn't this quiet, gentle little thing. No, it was like a lightning strike. It was a forceful entry into history that immediately, and I mean immediately, caused conflict. It drew violent opposition from all the established religious and political powers who liked things just the way they were.
Okay, so to really get to the heart of what Jesus was saying, we've got to do a little detective work. We need to look at the original Greek words he used because that's where the real code is hidden. It's fascinating stuff. So the first key word here is biazatai, and this word is like a double-edged sword. It means the kingdom is forcefully and aggressively pushing forward, right? But at the exact same time, it means it's being violently attacked. It's both the action and the reaction, all packed into this one powerful word.
And this is where the plot really thickens. Who exactly are these violent ones? The Greek is amazingly ambiguous here. It could mean these incredibly eager, spiritually intense people who are seizing the kingdom for themselves. Or it could mean hostile enemies who are trying to snatch it away, to stop its progress. So are the violent ones the heroes of this story, or the villains?
So, this ambiguity, it leads us to two completely different but equally possible ways to read this verse. Let's just put them side by side and take a look. So on one hand, you've got the positive view. The violent are actually believers, people who are so desperate for God that they seize the kingdom with this intense, passionate faith. But then on the other hand, you have the negative view. The violent are the enemies. We're talking Satan, worldly powers, corrupt religious systems, all of them fighting against the kingdom's advance.
So, which one is it? Well, the genius of this statement is that the answer is both. Both are true. The verse brilliantly captures the whole picture. See, the kingdom of heaven advances with so much force that it naturally invites violent opposition, and it requires a kind of violent passion from those who actually want to be a part of it. It's about both the urgency and the conflict.
But hey, this isn't just some ancient linguistic puzzle, right? This is a direct challenge. So what does this idea of holy violence actually mean for our lives right here, right now?
The message is crystal clear. Passivity gets you nowhere in this spiritual reality. The kingdom is not for the casual observer or the half-hearted participant. If you're lukewarm about the things of God, you're just going to get left behind. This whole thing, it requires your full attention and your full intensity.
And you can see what this holy violence looks like in practice all through the scriptures. I mean, think about Jacob literally physically wrestling with God and yelling, "I will not let you go unless you bless me." Or what about blind Bartimaeus, screaming for Jesus even when the whole crowd is telling him to shut up? Or that woman fighting her way through a hostile crowd just to touch the hem of Jesus' robe. That is holy violence in action.
So, okay, that's the biblical picture. But how do we translate that into our 21st century lives? What does it actually look like to have a violent approach to our own faith journey?
Well, here's how it breaks down. It's a violent faith that prays bold, audacious prayers and refuses to give in to doubt. It's a violent repentance that doesn't just try to manage sin, but radically cuts it off. It's a violent love that actively breaks our own selfishness in order to serve other people. And it is a violent perseverance that just flat out refuses to quit, no matter what setbacks or attacks come our way.
And listen, when you start to live this way, you have to expect resistance. You just have to. But don't let that discourage you. That pushback isn't a sign that you're failing. It's proof that you are engaging with something real and powerful. So powerful, in fact, that the forces of this world feel threatened enough to fight back.
So in the end, it really all boils down to this. The kingdom of heaven is not some passive inheritance that just falls into the lap of the lazy or the casual. It is a prize to be won. It's gained by those who are willing to fight for it, to fight through their own apathy, to fight through external opposition, and to do it with a desperate, passionate, and an absolutely unrelenting faith.
So the only question left is the one that Jesus' words force every single one of us to ask ourselves. When you look at your own life, your own heart, your own faith, are you willing to fight for it?